Good day. Now that the House of Representatives has voted to impeach Donald Trump, and now that Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Republican Party in Congress and the Senate Majority Leader, has declined to call the Senate back into session to hear that impeachment before Donald Trump leaves office on 20th January 2021, it is clear that the impeachment, or rather the hearing of the impeachment, will take place in the Senate after Donald Trump leaves office. This is an unprecedented and extraordinary situation. The United States has never before sought to impeach a president after he has left office. There have been a few instances where lesser elected officials have been impeached after they have left office, but as I understand it, no case where such an impeachment has actually resulted in a conviction in the Senate. The important point to understand about this procedure is that it is both unconstitutional and absurd. Firstly, that it is unconstitutional is clear from the simple text of the Constitution itself. I say that because, as many of you have no doubt heard or been made aware, a former judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the 4th District, Mr. J. Michael Luttig, has come forward and pointed out that, in fact, this would be an unconstitutional process. But in fact, if one looks at the text of the Constitution, there is really no doubt about it. Article 1, when discussing procedures, says the following: the Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. When the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside. Note that this refers to the President of the United States. It does not refer to a former President of the United States, there being, in fact, in constitutional law, no such person. Donald Trump becomes a private individual, as does every president, after he ceases to be in office, even though he is entitled to certain rights of pension and security as a former president. And it is absurd to argue that when the Constitution says that the President of the United States is tried, that means anyone else than the President in office. Article 2, Section 4, makes that conclusively clear. It provides as follows: the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The penalty set out in the Constitution for conviction on impeachment of the President is removal from office. Obviously, that cannot happen unless the President is in office. One does not have to be a jurist or a legal scholar or a lawyer to see that this is so. The text of the Constitution, as on so many other things, is entirely straightforward and completely clear. I say this in full knowledge that there are all sorts of intricate legal theories circulating which try to argue that it is in fact possible to try a president who has left office. I've read through all of these theories. It seems to me that not one of them properly addresses the simple and plain text of the Constitution itself. All of them, in fact, attempt to get round that text, when, as a matter of legal interpretation, lawyers or people who call themselves lawyers try to find words that go past the simple and clear meaning of a text in order to interpret it in some other way from what it is written, then you can say immediately that what is being proposed is wrong and has no basis in law. Now, I've mentioned and discussed the opinions of Judge Luttig, and obviously it's clear that I agree with him on the unconstitutionality of what is now being proposed. I should say that I disagree with him on one important point. Judge Luttig seems to believe that it would be possible, in theory, for Donald Trump to apply to the courts of the United States to somehow prevent a trial in the Senate from taking place. I doubt that this is possible. It seems to me that the courts will say, and that includes, by the way, the Supreme Court of the United States, will say, and probably would rightly say, that what goes on in the Senate is not their business. If the Senate decides to have a hearing on any matter, that is its prerogative, and the courts will not interfere with it. However, if the Senate were to vote for an unconstitutional impeachment, then it seems to me that the Supreme Court of the United States would be engaged. At that point, the Supreme Court of the United States could strike that unconstitutional impeachment down, just as it has struck down various other unconstitutional laws and acts which have been passed by Congress, but which the Supreme Court of the United States considers to be unconstitutional. Whether, of course, the Supreme Court of the United States would take that step is another matter. As we have seen over the last few months, it is extremely averse to involving itself in political controversies, and I suspect that it will be extremely unhappy to be involved in a question like this. Nonetheless, in my opinion, at that point, but not before, once a conviction is made, the Supreme Court could act and would have the right and even the duty to act if it chose to. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that senators, members of the Senate, will understand and take their jurisdiction to impeach seriously, and will understand that in this instance, what is being proposed is unconstitutional. It is also absurd. And a step back would show why. When does this power to impeach a former president, if it exists, end? Does it end a year after the president leaves office? 5 years afterwards? 10 years? 20? Longer? Does it end when the president is dead? I say that because some of the theories I have seen which try to justify this impeachment after the fact would, it seems to me, conceivably leave it open for a deceased former president to be impeached. It's also dangerous. It would mean that any president, after he or she leaves office, would need to worry all the time about what might happen if a party opposed to them were to come to power, gain control of both houses of Congress, and were to decide to pursue some form of vindictive impeachment based on some charge, either true or concocted. That seems to me a disastrous precedent, and one which should certainly be avoided under all and every circumstance. As is so often the case, the Founding Fathers, the framers of the Constitution, thought carefully about these matters, and they would not have introduced a concept like impeachment without thinking through its implications carefully. Certainly they never intended that an impeachment ought to be pursued in this frivolous and reckless way that some people are proposing. And as I said, if they had intended that impeachment could apply to former presidents, the text of the Constitution would certainly have said so, and would certainly have provided some kind of provisions limiting that most extraordinary power. The fact that the framers of the Constitution did not take that step shows that they did not consider it wise to do so. And today, we should not second guess their intentions and go beyond what the Constitution itself says. I will finish by making one very simple point. I have already set out in 2 previous programs for this channel why the legal consensus correctly says that Donald Trump did not commit incitement, the crime of incitement, during the events of 6 January 2021, and in fact why he almost certainly did not commit a criminal offence on that day. I have also done another program in which I have said why, in my opinion, it's difficult to see that he committed any impeachable acts at all on that day. If that is right, and obviously I am sure that is right, then Donald Trump did not violate the Constitution as those who propose impeaching him argue. Yet the extraordinary thing is that those very same people who argue wrongly that Donald Trump violated the Constitution in some form on the 6th of January are now proposing to violate the Constitution themselves by proceeding with an unconstitutional and indeed absurd impeachment. Nothing illustrates better the extraordinary response and emotion that the person of Donald Trump arouses in some people. The fact remains that Trump derangement syndrome, as some call it, is a disastrously bad guide to action. Republicans who are minded to support this impeachment need to think very carefully about the constitutional provisions and the law and the disastrous precedent such a conviction for impeachment would set. Democrats ought to be thinking the same thing, though I doubt, unfortunately, that most of them will. However, perhaps they ought to heed the concerns of their own president, Joe Biden, who has made very clear his utter lack of enthusiasm for this misguided course. Joe Biden wants to prioritize his very ambitious legislative program, with the Democrats having only a narrow majority on the House of Representatives and no majority at all in the Senate, where they will depend on the Vice President's vote to get legislation through. Enacting this ambitious legislative program is going to be a huge challenge. Joe Biden also wants to get through the complex confirmation process in order to set up his administration. He does not want or need the distraction in his first days as president of a Senate trial of his predecessor. Purely as a matter of politics, it seems to me a crazy idea to distract attention away from the sitting president by focusing on the actions of his predecessor. Do Democrats really want the nation to be debating the actions of former President Donald Trump when the nation ought to be focused on the actions of the current president, Joe Biden? I cannot see how that makes any sort of political sense at all. This impeachment is an exceptionally bad idea, and in my opinion, given that it is both unconstitutional and absurd and politically extremely unwise, for the reasons I've discussed both in this programme and in previous programmes, I hope that the Senate will throw it out and dismiss it in summary fashion. Thank you for joining me in this programme. Please check out this channel for future programmes. Please also check us out on the Duran, where I do, on the main channel, the Duran, where I do programmes with my friend and colleague Alex Cristoforo. Please also check out Alex's channel. You will find links to all these channels under this video. Please also find us on our other platforms, BitChute, Library, Odyssey, Rumble, and the rest. Please also support us through Patreon, Subscribestar, and PayPal. And lastly, please don't forget to check out our shop, see the wonderful things that we have on sale there. Our famous magic mugs, this one with the flag of the United States, our sweatshirts and t-shirts like those I'm wearing now, our wonderful Duran hats, our hoodies, and all the other things. Please also join me for my next programme. Thank you very much.